Right now, as you are watching this, the ground beneath Southern California is doing something that has not happened in over 169 years. The most dangerous fault system in the United States just moved. And the scientists who have spent their entire careers studying it are now saying what they have never said before in public. This is the one they have been warning about. This is the scenario they have been modeling, preparing for, and quietly dreading for decades. And it is no longer a distant theoretical risk sitting inside a computer simulation. It is happening right now, beneath one of the most densely populated regions on the entire planet. We are talking about the San Andreas Fault. We are talking about Southern California. We are talking about 13 million people in the Los Angeles metropolitan area alone, and tens of millions more across San Bernardino, Riverside, the Coachella Valley, and the surrounding region. And we are talking about a fault system that geologists have just confirmed is sitting at its highest stress level in 1,000 years. Drop a comment right now. Have you ever felt an earthquake in California or anywhere else? A small tremor, a rattling of dishes, something that knocked you off your feet? Tell me where you were and what it felt like. I want to hear from you, especially those of you living anywhere near Southern California right now. If you want to be the first to know every time something like this develops, subscribe to this channel right now. It is completely free, and it takes 2 seconds. We cover the biggest science and geology stories on the planet without exaggeration, without conspiracy theories, and without panic. Just the facts, the science, and the real stakes. Let us go for 4,000 likes on this video so the algorithm gets it in front of the people who need to see it. Now let us get into exactly what is happening. Let us start with what actually happened. In June 2026, a research team led by Dr. Lilian Burkhardt of the University of Bern in Switzerland published a landmark study in the Journal of Geophysical Research Solid Earth. This was not a blog post. This was not a social media claim. This was peer-reviewed science published in one of the most respected geophysical journals on the planet. And the conclusion was stated with the kind of directness that scientists rarely use in public. The San Andreas Fault system in Southern California has now reached its highest stress level in the past 1,000 years. Let that sit for a moment. Not the highest in a decade. Not the highest since the last major earthquake. The highest in 1,000 years of geological history along this fault system. To reach that conclusion, Dr. Burkhardt's team built something extraordinary. They constructed a physics-based 4-dimensional computer model that simulated 1,000 years of earthquake history along both the San Andreas and the adjacent San Jacinto fault systems. They fed the model real geological evidence, radiocarbon dating of displaced sediments pulled from trenches dug across fault lines, tree ring records documenting past ground ruptures, historical observations going back centuries, instrumental data from modern seismic networks. And then they ran the simulation forward to the present day to calculate exactly where stress levels stand right now. The finding was unambiguous. Stress on multiple segments of the fault system is now at or above the highest values observed anywhere in the entire 1,000-year simulation period. The system has not just approached a critical threshold. According to the model, it has already passed it. USG's geologist Kate Scherer, a co-author on the study, put it in plain language when asked about the significance. Because it has been such a long time since either fault system has had a major earthquake, the accumulated stress is enormous. UC seismologist Ahmed El-Bana, director of the statewide California Earthquake Center, was even more direct when asked the question that everyone wants answered. When could this happen? His answer was the kind of answer that should make every Californian stop what they are doing and pay attention. It could be today, tomorrow, in 10 years, or in 30 years. On geological timescales, there is no meaningful difference between those options. That is not a scientist being evasive. That is a scientist telling you the honest truth about the limits of what we can predict. And the honest truth is this: the stress is there. The fault is ready. The only thing we do not know is the precise moment of release. Now let us explain exactly how faults work, because understanding the mechanism is what makes this situation genuinely alarming rather than just another scary headline. The San Andreas Fault is what geologists call a transform fault. It runs roughly 1,300 kilometers through California, marking the boundary between two of Earth's major tectonic plates. On the west side sits the Pacific Plate. On the east side sits the North American Plate. These two plates are not sitting still. They are grinding past each other in opposite directions at a rate of approximately 5 centimeters per year. 5 centimeters does not sound like much, but multiply that by decades, by centuries, and you begin to understand the problem. Here is how the stress builds. The two plates are trying to move relative to each other constantly. But along certain sections of the fault, friction locks the plates together at the surface and in the upper crust. The plates cannot slip freely, so instead of releasing energy through gradual continuous movement, the locked section stores that energy as elastic stress in the surrounding rock. The crust literally bends and compresses, absorbing years and decades of tectonic motion that has nowhere to go. This goes on until the accumulated stress finally exceeds the strength of the rock holding the fault in place. At that point, the fault suddenly, violently, and catastrophically slips. All of that stored energy releases at once as an earthquake. And the longer the fault has been locked without rupturing, the more energy has accumulated, and the larger the potential earthquake when it finally goes. The southern San Andreas Fault last ruptured in a major event in 1857, the Fort Cajon earthquake, estimated at magnitude 7.9. That was 169 years ago. For 169 consecutive years, the Pacific Plate and the North American Plate have been grinding against each other along this fault at 5 centimeters per year without a major release. That is 8.45 meters of cumulative movement stored as stress in the rock. Think about what that means physically. The crust along the southern San Andreas is holding back the equivalent of 8.45 meters of tectonic displacement. Every single year that passes without a major rupture, another 5 centimeters is added to that deficit. Every year, the spring gets wound tighter, and now Dr. Burkhard's team has quantified that stress for the first time with a 1,0,0,0,0 year baseline. The number they arrived at is the highest in that entire historical record. But here is where the situation becomes even more alarming, because the study did not just find elevated stress on the San Andreas alone. It found something that fundamentally changes how scientists are thinking about the risk to Southern California. The San Andreas and the San Jacinto fault systems are not independent. They are connected. And the way they are connected may be the most dangerous geological fact about Southern California that most people have never heard of. The two fault systems meet at a geographic junction called Cajon Pass, located roughly 80 kilometers northeast of downtown Los Angeles. This junction, the researchers discovered, can act as what they are now calling an earthquake gate. Under certain stress conditions, a rupture that starts along the San Andreas can travel through Cajon Pass and jump onto the San Jacinto Fault, or vice versa. What would have been a single fault earthquake becomes a multi-fault rupture, a chain reaction across two separate but connected fault systems simultaneously. The implications of that are severe. A rupture confined to one fault segment might produce an earthquake in the magnitude 7.2 to 7.4 range, already a catastrophic event. But a joint rupture crossing Cajon Pass, according to the study, could produce an earthquake of between magnitude 7.4 and 7.8. That is not a small difference. On the logarithmic scale used to measure earthquakes, each tenth of a magnitude point represents significantly more energy released. A magnitude 7.8 releases roughly 4 times the energy of a magnitude 7.4. We are talking about an event that would simultaneously threaten the entire Los Angeles basin, San Bernardino, Riverside County, and the Coachella Valley. Right now, stress levels on both fault systems are running so close to each other and at such elevated levels that the earthquake gate at Cajon Pass is, in the words of the researchers, effectively unlocked. The conditions are in place for a joint rupture. Not in some future theoretical scenario, right now. Dr. Burkhard's message to policymakers and emergency managers was explicit. Plan for a joint rupture of both fault systems as a realistic possibility, not as a remote worst-case scenario. The time to act is now, not after the earthquake. Let us now talk about what this actually means for the people living in Southern California, because data and geological models only matter insofar as they translate into real consequences for real human beings. The Los Angeles metropolitan area has a population of over 13 million people. Add in San Bernardino, Riverside, and the Coachella Valley, and you are looking at a region of 20 million people sitting within the direct impact zone of a potential magnitude 7.4 to 7.8 earthquake along two fault systems simultaneously. The ground beneath this region is not uniform. Soil conditions vary dramatically across the area, and this matters enormously for earthquake damage. In the hills and older rock formations, seismic waves pass through relatively quickly and cause moderate shaking. But in the low-lying areas, particularly the older alluvial sediments of the Los Angeles basin and reclaimed or filled land near the coast, those same seismic waves get amplified. The soft sediment acts like jelly, wobbling and amplifying the shaking far beyond what the underlying earthquake magnitude would suggest. Certain neighborhoods in Los Angeles could experience shaking dramatically more intense than other neighborhoods just a few kilometers away, simply because of the ground they are built on. Then there is the building stock. California has made significant advances in seismic building codes for new construction. Modern buildings in Los Angeles are engineered to sway and flex rather than collapse. Steel moment frames, base isolation systems, and tuned mass dampers are incorporated into newer structures in ways that give them real resilience against major earthquakes. But the older building stock is a different story entirely. Thousands of soft-story apartment buildings constructed in the 1960s and 1970s still stand across Los Angeles. These are multi-story residential buildings where the ground floor is open and weak, often used for parking or retail, while multiple floors of living units sit above. In a major earthquake, soft-story buildings collapse downward at the ground floor while the upper floors pancake onto each other. It is one of the most deadly failure modes in earthquake engineering and one of the most common in older California cities. The city of Los Angeles has been working on a mandatory soft-story retrofit program for years. Progress has been made. But thousands of buildings that house hundreds of thousands of residents have either not yet been retrofitted or the work remains incomplete. Beyond residential buildings, critical infrastructure tells its own story. Major gas mains cross active fault traces throughout the region. Water pipelines run through areas of known liquefaction risk, where the ground can temporarily behave like a liquid during strong shaking, causing pipes to rupture and sink. Electrical transmission lines and substations are distributed across the fault zone. The freeway system that Southern California depends on for everything from emergency response to everyday commerce crosses fault lines at multiple points. In the 1994 Northridge earthquake, a magnitude 6.7 event centered in the San Fernando Valley, freeway overpasses collapsed, a parking structure fell onto vehicles, and apartment buildings pancaked. The Northridge earthquake was a magnitude 6.7. We are now talking about an event potentially reaching magnitude 7.8. That is not double the Northridge earthquake. It is not even close. A magnitude 7.8 releases approximately 89 times more energy than a magnitude 6.7. The fires are another dimension of this risk that most people do not think about until it is too late. When underground gas mains rupture in a major earthquake, gas escapes and can ignite from any number of sources. In the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, fires caused more damage than the earthquake shaking itself. Southern California's urban environment is dense, heavily built, and in many areas extremely dry. Fire services responding to a major earthquake would immediately face multiple simultaneous ignitions across a region where communication systems, water pressure, and road access may all be compromised simultaneously. Let us address something directly, because any time a story like this runs, it is followed immediately by a wave of misinformation, conspiracy theories, and wildly inaccurate claims. And that misinformation can actually make people less safe, not more. Claim 1. Scientists can predict when the earthquake will happen, they just are not telling us. This is false. No scientist, no government agency, no seismic monitoring network anywhere on Earth can reliably predict the specific time and date of an earthquake. The physics of fault rupture involve processes at scales too small and too complex to monitor directly. What science can do is assess probability over time windows. Right now, USG's estimates a greater than 60% probability of a magnitude, 6.7 or larger earthquake somewhere in the greater Los Angeles area within the next 30 years. That is a probability estimate, not a prediction of a specific event on a specific date. Anyone claiming to know when the big one will hit is not telling you what science actually says. Claim 2. The recent cluster of earthquakes globally means something unusual is happening to the entire planet at once. This is also false. The planet is not more seismically active than normal right now. Earth experiences thousands of earthquakes every single day. Magnitude 6 and above events happen roughly 120 to 140 times per year globally, about one every 3 days somewhere on Earth. When you see multiple significant earthquakes occurring in the same week across different parts of the world, that is statistically expected, not anomalous. The tectonic systems in California and those in Japan, Venezuela, or the Philippines are geologically independent and do not communicate with each other in any meaningful seismological sense. What has changed is not the geology. What has changed is the number of people paying attention to seismic news and the volume of content covering it. Claim 3. There is nothing you can do to prepare, so there is no point in trying. This is perhaps the most dangerous claim of all, because it leads to paralysis at exactly the moment when preparation is most valuable. Japan has proved conclusively that seismic preparedness saves lives. A magnitude 7.4 earthquake in Japan in April 2026 killed nobody. The same magnitude event would kill thousands in an unprepared city. The difference is not luck. It is decades of building codes, emergency planning, and public education. Individual preparation genuinely matters. Knowing where your gas shutoff valve is matters. Having 72 hours of emergency supplies matters. Knowing your evacuation route matters. Strapping your water heater and bolting heavy furniture to walls matters. These are not symbolic gestures. They are the difference between managing an emergency and being overwhelmed by one. Let us talk about what California has actually built to deal with this risk, because the picture is not entirely bleak. There is real infrastructure in place, and understanding it matters. The Shake Alert Earthquake Early Warning System is now operational statewide across California. This system works on a principle that sounds simple but has profound real-world consequences. When a fault ruptures, it generates two types of seismic waves simultaneously. P waves, or primary waves, travel faster but carry minimal energy and cause almost no damage. S waves, or secondary waves, travel slower but carry the violent shaking energy that destroys buildings and kills people. By detecting P waves the moment a rupture starts and immediately broadcasting an alert, Shake Alert can give populated areas seconds to tens of seconds of warning before the destructive shaking arrives. 10 seconds sounds like almost nothing. It is not nothing. 10 seconds is enough time to drop and take cover under a solid table, protecting yourself from the falling objects that cause most earthquake injuries. It is enough time for a surgeon to pause a procedure. Enough time for a train to begin emergency braking before reaching a bridge. Enough time for an elevator to stop at the nearest floor and open its doors. Enough time to move away from a window or a tall bookcase. Shake Alert alerts are pushed to mobile phones automatically in California. If you live in California and you do not have wireless emergency alerts enabled on your phone, stop this video and enable them right now. California also has strong building codes for new construction. Post-1980 buildings in California are generally designed with seismic engineering that would have been unimaginable in 1957. The gap is in the existing building stock, particularly those soft-story apartment buildings and older concrete structures that predate modern seismic requirements. The retrofit programs are real. Los Angeles passed mandatory retrofit ordinances. Buildings are being strengthened, but the scale of the task across a metropolitan area of 13 million people is enormous, and the timeline for completion extends over years and in some cases decades. Community-level emergency preparedness has also improved significantly. Los Angeles County's emergency management systems have been tested and updated through multiple disaster scenarios. The Great Shakeout earthquake drills, which have occurred annually across California for years, have trained millions of people in the drop cover, hold-on response that reduces injuries from falling objects. The gap, the honest gap, is between the scale of the risk that Dr. Burkhard's study has now quantified and the pace of preparation. The science is now telling us that the southern San Andreas and San Jacinto fault systems together represent a threat at the high end of what has been historically modeled. The building retrofit programs, the infrastructure hardening, and the emergency preparedness funding have not yet caught up with that threat level. Let us talk about what you can do right now, wherever you are. Because information without action is just anxiety, and that is not what this channel is about. If you live in Southern California, the first thing to understand is the reality of your risk environment. You live near one of the most stressed fault systems on the planet. That is not a reason to panic and move. It is a reason to be prepared. Japan has 1,500 felt earthquakes per year and the culture and infrastructure to handle them. California can get there too, but it requires individual action alongside public investment. Know your building. If you live in an older multi-story building, especially one built before 1980 with open ground floor parking or retail, find out whether it has been seismically retrofitted. This information is publicly available through Los Angeles, city records, and similar databases in other municipalities. If it has not been retrofitted, that is information you need to factor into your decisions about where you live. Secure your space. Go through every room in your home and identify what could fall, topple, or become a projectile in strong shaking. Water heaters that are not strapped to walls can fall and rupture gas lines. Bookcases that are not bolted can fall onto people. Heavy objects stored on high shelves can become dangerous projectiles. All of these hazards can be addressed in an afternoon with basic hardware. Build your emergency kit. FEMA recommends a minimum of 72 hours of supplies. Water is the most critical element. 1 gallon per person per day. Add non-perishable food, a first aid kit, flashlights, extra batteries, any prescription medications needed, copies of important documents, and cash. After a major earthquake, atoms and electronic payment systems may be unavailable for days. Cash is not optional. Know how to shut off your gas. A major earthquake will likely rupture gas lines inside and around your home. If you can shut off the gas quickly after shaking stops, you eliminate one of the primary sources of post-earthquake fire. Know where your gas meter is and keep a wrench nearby. But critically, only shut off the gas if you smell gas or if there is visible damage to your gas system. Shutting it off unnecessarily requires a utility company visit to restore service. Have a communication plan. After a major earthquake in Southern California, mobile networks will be overwhelmed and may be completely unavailable for hours. Text messages have a better chance of getting through than voice calls. Designate an out-of-state contact point. Everyone in your household should know to contact that person rather than each other, because local networks will be congested while calls to out-of-state numbers may get through. Agree on a meeting point if you cannot reach each other. Know your evacuation routes. If your neighborhood is in a flood zone, a tsunami inundation zone, or an area of known liquefaction risk, know the routes out before the earthquake happens. After the earthquake, those routes may be partially blocked by debris, but knowing the alternatives is invaluable. Practice drop cover, hold on. When shaking starts, the instinct for most people is to run. Running during an earthquake is one of the most dangerous things you can do because falling objects and structural failures happen in the first seconds of shaking. Drop to your hands and knees. Take cover under a solid table or desk. If no table is available, cover your head and neck with your arms. Hold on and stay in place until the shaking stops. This response has saved lives in every major earthquake where people had the chance to practice it. Let us step back and look at the full picture here, because the most important message of this video is not just about California. It is about what the combination of Southern California's geology and Southern California's preparation level means for the next decade. Dr. Burkhard's study does something unusual in earthquake science. It gives us a quantified baseline. It tells us not just that stress on the San Andreas and San Jacinto systems is elevated, but that it is elevated to a degree not seen in 1,000 years of geological history along these faults. That is a statement with genuine weight. Earthquake science has been saying for decades that a major southern San Andreas event is overdue. The 2026 study puts numbers and a historical comparison behind that assessment for the first time. The concept of the big one has been part of California culture for decades, referenced in movies, TV shows, disaster preparedness campaigns, and conversations over dinner tables across the state. It has sometimes been treated as a fixture of California mythology, something scary to joke about, but not something that demands immediate personal action today. Dr. Burkhard's study changes that framing. This is not mythology. This is physics. The stress is real, it is measured, and it is at its highest point in 1,000 years. The earthquake gate at Cajon Pass is unlocked. The conditions for a joint rupture spanning 2 fault systems are in place right now. The timing remains unknowable, but the readiness of the fault system is not a matter of debate among the scientists who study it. Japan's response to its own seismic reality offers the most instructive model. Japan did not become earthquake resilient overnight. It took generations of investment in building codes, engineering, public education, and cultural integration of seismic awareness. The result was a magnitude 7.4 earthquake in April 2026 that killed nobody. That outcome was not luck. It was the accumulated product of decisions made by governments, engineers, educators, and individual residents over decades. California has the knowledge. It has the engineering. It has the economic resources. What has sometimes lagged is the urgency, the sense that the preparation timeline is not open-ended, but is actually running against a geological clock that has been ticking for 169 years and is now, according to the best available science, approaching zero. The window is not closed. Retrofit programs can be accelerated. Emergency preparedness funding can be increased. Individual households across Southern California can take the afternoon this week to secure their homes, build their emergency kits, and review their communication plans. Schools can drill. Hospitals can test their emergency protocols. City planners can prioritize the remaining vulnerable building stock. None of this stops the earthquake from happening. Nothing will. The plates will move. The fault will slip. The only question is what Southern California will look like when it does. And the answer to that question is being written right now by the decisions being made today. We are going to keep tracking this story closely. Every new seismic reading along the San Andreas, Every update from the research team at the University of Bern. Every policy response from California emergency management officials. Every aftershock sequence that tells us more about the current state of stress in the fault system. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss any of it. And leave that comment below right now. Have you ever felt an earthquake? Are you living in Southern California right now? What is your preparation level, honestly? Have you built your emergency kit? Do you know how to shut off your gas? Tell me where you are and what you are thinking, because these are not abstract geological events. These are real risks affecting real people, and understanding that is what keeps us motivated to take the science seriously. The planet has been doing this for 4.5 billion years. It will continue long after we are gone. We cannot stop earthquakes. We cannot predict exactly when they will happen. But Japan has shown the world that we can choose how prepared we are when they arrive. That choice is available to every person watching this video right now. 4,000 likes on this one. Let us get it in front of every person in California who needs to see it. See you in the next one.